Hi, it's James Harrison. I'm going to open up a can of worms here. I know it's a hot topic, if you want to call it that. And this has been going on for a while, but what spurred this conversation today is Jim Riley, drummer for Rascal Flatts, posted a clip of the ending of a performance of Rascal Flatts with the Backstreet Boys. And he's doing all this stuff, and somebody said, "That's not country." And that just irks me every time I hear that. Jim's reply was, "Yes, it is." And he's right, it is. Now, so it brings us back to this determination that everybody's got to put a label on something. And sometimes those labels don't fit into our category, so we just dismiss it as not being that. Now, in my time of growing up, when I was a little kid, I didn't listen to a lot of country, but my grandparents and stuff did. So I would hear that. Now I appreciate it, but at the time I didn't care for George Jones at that time. Now I do. For a lot of people, they say that's country. But if you take George Jones and you take Merle Haggard, there's a big difference. Okay. Are they both country? Yes. Was Conway Twitty a little bit more pop compared to that? Yes. Loretta Lynn to me was country. Dolly early on was country. She pushed those boundaries and has gone a bunch of different directions with it. It's still country. Okay. Is there pop in some of it? Yeah. Is 9 to 5 a country tune? Story wise, yes, it is. Because Dolly did it, yes, it is. But it was a huge crossover tune. It does lean more toward the commercial pop side, but that's what it is. So is Rascal Flatts a country band by label and everything? Yes. However, they rock really hard compared to a lot of country bands. And so is it categorized as country? Yes. Is it a different type of country? Yes. If Rascal Flatts came out in the 70s, like when the Eagles came out, they would have been considered rock. Early Eagles, when you listen to Peaceful Easy Feeling or Lion Eyes or even Take It Easy, those are country tunes more so than rock tunes. But there's a need for people to categorize and put these boundaries in. There are no boundaries in music. There's always somebody stretching the limits. We take swing and we have dance music, and then we have somebody like Duke Ellington and Count Basie that are pushing those limits. And then we take, jazz, and you have somebody that pushes the limits. And there's a big difference between listening to Charlie Parker and listening to John Coltrane. And there's always these boundaries, this elasticity to any category that gets stretched. Just look at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Joan Baez is in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Is she rock? No, she's not. But she's part of a movement that was against the establishment and speaking out and everything, which is rock in some ways. All right. There's hip hop groups and stuff in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame now. And they're not rock. There's pop groups in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. They're not rock, but they're still under this giant umbrella of music that collectively we pull in. One of my favorite country bands from the 90s was Restless Heart, late 80s and through the 90s. And Restless Heart was kind of that pop country, if you want to call it that, had that crossover appeal, a lot like the Little River Band in a lot of ways, but they were country. Exile, which started as a rock band, ended in getting re-signed as a country band. And so there's these labels that everybody wants to pigeonhole everybody into, but really, if you like the music, go with it. Do I think that Beyonce's Country Carter is a country album? Personally, I don't, but I don't care that people like it or dislike it. That's up to you. If you don't like it, don't listen to it. Don't buy it. I don't think everything Taylor Swift did when she was country, but it doesn't matter. She found an audience. If you listen to Tim McGraw, he's kind of pushed some of the boundaries and went to that pop direction too. Keith Urban is certainly somebody that has continued to evolve and push boundaries, but he's still considered a country artist. And then you get somebody that comes along like Alan Jackson, who recently retired for health purposes and whatnot. Alan was part of that movement in the 90s that people called Haddox, but now people consider him very traditional. Garth Brooks, Clint Black, George Strait had been around a little bit earlier than that, and those guys are considered, classic country now. But when you talk to them, they're going to go back to Merle Haggard, Conway Twitty, and George Jones, and even others. So there's a lineage that's important, but there's always going to be these tributaries that, like a tree that grows, the branches just keep going, or you could say the roots. So my point is this. In that particular clip that Jim Riley posted, it was a conglomeration or of the Backstreet Boys, which are a pop boy band, and Rascal Flatts. And they put them together and they did a thing. It was entertaining for the audience and everything like that. And it's for television. It probably got a lot of people excited. And so this blend, it's still a country band. Even if they blended two different types of music together, it's still country in that sense. So my point is this. Somebody's going to divide and put a label on something that you're going to disagree with. Is Led Zeppelin heavy metal, or are they hard rock? Is Black Sabbath the first heavy metal band? Or how are you going to argue that? And then you're going to say, well, Cinderella's not metal, Rat's not metal, Bon Jovi wasn't metal. Were they pop metal? Oh, we label it hair metal. There's always going to be a category that somebody creates. That's my point. So it doesn't matter what I think. That's my opinion. It doesn't matter what you think. You're all entitled to it. But to preach against it and say that's not something, when in this particular case, Jim Riley is the drummer for Rascal Flatts. I believe he's the musical director, and that is a country band. Does their music extend beyond country? Yes, but they're still labeled a country band, and that's the point. Is it? I don't know. In my opinion, they are. If Led Zeppelin did a country tune, and people said, "Oh, that's not country. That's not a country band." You're right. Led Zeppelin's not a country band, but they have the ability to do stuff. You listen to some of the Robert Plant and Alison Krauss stuff. How do you categorize it? So, rant over. My point is, somebody's got to create a label. It's not going to agree with yours. That's okay. That's life.